Hi, this is Dr. Ted Koren. I know it's a little bit earlier than 1 o'clock, but we have a couple of minutes to get comfortable. For those of you that don't know me, I'm in DC, doctor of chiropractic. I have Koren publications. I lecture a lot at colleges, state associations, organizations, and on chiropractic, vaccination, cancer, chronic illness, philosophy, research, and of course, Koren-specific technique, KST, which I developed after having been sick and suffering for 10 years, having seen between 40 and 50 doctors. Nobody could help me. So, oh, by the way, sorry about yesterday. Apparently Facebook was down, and we couldn't do this. Wednesday at 1, which was our regular scheduled. Why? I have no idea. Fortunately, it seems to have been an international problem because some people were worried that Facebook's censoring people that are critical of vaccination has caused them to start censoring me and many others. But I don't think it was that. I mean, here we are now. So everybody get comfortable, welcome, and it's about time to start. One of the things I like to start with, I think it's a good idea. Oh, two things. One is my hat. People complimented me on my hat last time. I don't have it. Because of the time and the fact that I still see patients, I could not work in my regular office. Let me get the brightness out of there. That might help. So I'm working in my work office, and that's why it looks so sloppy. And got all these tchotchkes around, as you can hear. But hey, that's what you got to do what you got to do. So I like to start with an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch, as you know, it's a marketing thing, but I think it's useful because it's what do you say to someone who asks you, what do you do? And you have like the time of between floors in an elevator to tell them. So this is what I like to say. I say, have you ever met a healer or a person who's able to locate your deepest stresses you may have had your whole life, physical, emotional, physiological, and stresses that other doctors have missed and released them, even if you've had them decades, since birth. That's what I do. So that's how I like to explain KST. People then ask me often, well, exactly how do you do it? And that's what I'd like to talk about today, because today we're going to talk about a really fascinating, I think it's a breakthrough in how we've discovered how to work on patients and what's important, and that is known as the posture of subluxation. So I'll give a little bit of history, or POS, posture of subluxation, posture of stress. These are just general terms. As many of you know, I use the word subluxation as a metaphor for stress, interference, stagnation, dysfunction. The word subluxation has many, many terms: energetic imbalance. As far as I'm concerned, an acupuncturist that balances out a person is removing their emotional or their energetic subluxations. Good therapy, psychological or NET, neuroemotional technique, which I think is wonderful, by Scott Walker, that releases what he calls NECs, neuroemotional complexes. And he inspired me to apply KST to emotional issues as well. There are many, many things we could talk about, but first, what I'll talk about is the posture of subluxation that was initially inspired by Dr. Lowell Ward of Long Beach, California. You know, in the Talmud it says, if you don't acknowledge your teachers, it's theft. And I try my best to always acknowledge where ideas came from. And so posture of subluxation came from initially Dr. Ward. Dr. Ward was a chiropractor in Long Beach, California, and he had a patient in who was in horrible pain, sciatica pain, real bad when they were sitting, but not when they were standing. So he took an x-ray of her, as he usually did, standing x-ray. And she looked great, no problems. But she had her pain when she was sitting. So he thought, well, I don't usually do this, but what if I x-ray her spine when she's in the sitting position? He did, and lo and behold, she was an absolute mess. her whole spine, the reverse curves, disc compression, exostosis, like arthritic kind of changes, disc bulging. Sitting, standing, none of that. Now that's not supposed to be in the pathology books. You know, standing, sitting should make a difference, but it made a tremendous difference. And that inspired me when I started doing KST, because when we use an instrument, we're not married to the table. You know, I like to say KST frees you from the tyranny of the table. Too many doctors use a table. Problem is, who gets hurt laying down on a table? But they do get hurt when they're standing, sitting, moving, mostly in various positions, trauma, accidents, what have you. So the real damage appears when you put a person in the correct posture, posture of subluxation or posture of stress, POS. And we use that, and that's, I tell people in KST, anywhere really, posture is king. You really want to release the true damage. Look, find out what posture what the body wants their posture to be in. Of course, with KST, one of the fun things about it wasn't that way when I started, but one of the things I realized was you can ask the body nearly anything. Our body is full of hundreds of little lie detectors, you might say. Look, where hundreds of lie detector tests are in our bodies, and we call this binary biofeedback. A binary biofeedback device. Your body is trying to tell you. And a simple, very common one is muscle weakness, right? When you have been manual muscle testing or applied kinesiology. But there's others in DNFT and other techniques, they use the short leg reflex. Some people do this. I can't do it. It's too flaky for me. But some people are great at it. And some other people, they use all kinds of gadgets. And the toughness instrument employed it. In craniosacral therapy, they have something called still point, which is a change in the movement of the skull. The rhythm, when it's challenged, questions are asked. So with KST, we use the occipital drop. Why do we use it? Because it's easy. I'm very lazy. I like to do the easiest things and the fastest. The advantage of using the occipital drop to get information, and I'll talk more about this in future broadcasts, is that when you do the occipital drop, there's no muscle fatigue. You could do it 100 times a minute. And that's muscle fatigue is a problem with muscle testing, right? But not with the occipital drop. Also, you don't have to put the patient, more importantly for the POS, they can be in any posture and you can still check them. Standing, sitting, laying down, moving, doing sports, athletics, whatever. They're in different postures and you can check and correct them in different positions. Now, when you have a table, it's easy to work on patients when you do manual work, like diversified chiropractic or any kind of manual thing. But when you have this is the arthrostim instrument. You could use any instrument. You can even use your fingers, actually, for tapping. I find this is easiest to use. When you use an instrument, then you can, you're not really, it frees you even more from the table, because then you can work on a person when they're standing, when they're sitting, when they're throwing a football, when they're throwing a baseball, when they're kicking soccer, right? Football, they call it football in South America. I don't know why. Anyway, it makes more sense than soccer because you're kicking with your foot. So why do we call it football in America? The only time you use it is when you kick for a field goal. All right, that's another mystery. That's another talk. So Dr. Ward sort of inspired me because I learned his work called spinal column stressology, and he x-rayed people standing and sitting and saw the most amazing changes. Incredible as they change their physical posture. In fact, and we'd see it over and over again because I took, oh my Lord, probably close to 1,000 sets of Dr. Ward's work, standing and sitting, full spine, see everything. And also as it relates, the head relates to the pelvis, relates to left and right, so you can get an idea of how off balance a person is when you did full spine x-rays. Did a lot of them under Dr. Ward's tutelage. And it was fascinating. You'd see a normal curve standing, a reverse sitting, or vice versa. You'd see a military neck in one posture a reversed or normal neck in a different posture. Same person, separated by a few minutes. You'd see disc problems come and go. Arthritis come and go. And Dr. Ward, at first I didn't believe him. Even though I saw it, I didn't believe him. It sounds sort of funny, but this was a big jump for me. And Dr. Ward said, oh, I saw severe bulging disc herniations in one position and not in another. So one day, and I didn't believe him, he also said he saw arthritis come and go between changes of postures. So I remember I was at a seminar. I was in the back, waiting to go on stage. It was a big state organization. And while I was waiting, I was sort of chatting with the exhibitors there, in the booths, and to kill a little time. And one of the guys had a new thing, standing and sitting MRIs. Those days you can only just lay down. This was, I think it was called a sitting MRI. And he was trying to sell it, of course. He was from a company. And I remember he was chatting. He wasn't even looking at me. He was, getting his booth together. And I was chatting with him a bit. He was busy. And I said, by the way, do you ever see arthritis come and go when a person goes from one posture to another? Or disc problems or something? And I'll never forget, he didn't even turn to look at me because he was doing stuff. But he said, oh, yeah, we see it all the time. And then he just went back to his thing. And I thought, oh, my Lord, I guess what I'm seeing on X-ray is, I'm not hallucinating. There really is a tremendous amount of change as a person changes their posture. Of course, Dr. Ward was limited to standing and sitting, and his adjustments were pretty much limited to laying down and against the wall. He did anterior thoracics, which I have yet to find to be effective. And might be upsetting some people, but I have not found anterior thoracic subluxations anything more than defensive, and that's what DNFT Van Rump said after like 50 years of clinical work. He said it's very, very rare, possibly from trauma, bad trauma. But I'm getting off the topic. So I started realizing, well, let me put people in different positions and check them. But first I asked the body. See, I had to get back to that. Asking the body. I know we went a little roundabout, but you ask the body, what's a good position? What's the ideal position for this patient to be checked in? What will reveal the damage that his body wants corrected now? So first question, I say posture is king. And I'll get sitting or standing, but not always. Sometimes it will be laying down, that's rare. Sometimes I'll get not sitting, not standing, not laying down. And I will often ask the body the question, does the patient know? I almost always get a yes. And I'll say to the patient, you have to get in a certain position for me to check you. But the position that's causing stress or subluxations or pain. They always, always know it. And they'll get into some weird position. I use this now, the wisdom of the patient, when I work on baseball players or athletes of any kind, football, basketball, because I usually will ask them, what is your biggest problem when you're playing? They always know. Now, I don't know. I have a lacrosse player, right? He's on this big fancy team in college, comes to me for care. I don't know much about lacrosse. But I asked him, oh, what's your worst position? What's the worst problem you have when you're on the field? Knew it right away. They know their bodies. They know their problems. And you can do that emotionally because there's the posture of subluxation, POS, is emotional as well as physical. It's emotional. And that means that they get into a different emotional posture. They think of a painful memory or an issue that they're dealing with. Their body will change. And you correct the subluxations, the stress that appears on their body when they're thinking of those problems. We do it physiologically with allergies. The same idea. That's a different posture. They're exposed to an allergen that they're allergic to, and they will change. That's a different stress posture, you might say. They are exposed. What's the posture of subluxation for someone who's got dyslexia? Reading, right? Or writing. There's something called dysgraphia. It's not dyslexia. The terminology is learning disorders, right? Overall learning disorders, processing disorders, and dysgraphia was problem writing, just like reading is dyslexia, which means difficult reading in Greek, dysgraphia, difficult writing. There's dyspraxia, balance problems, dyscalculia, math problems, difficulty with math. So when a person has dyslexia, their posture of subluxation is reading. You can clear them out completely. No subluxations. Give them a book, they look at it, they lock up all over the place. They subluxate. So you work on them while they're looking at the book. And reading, you work on them while they're writing. You work on them while they're thinking of their ex-wife, while they're thinking about their major stresses in life, whatever they are. So the whole idea of posture is physical and emotional. And the reason why I like using this instrument in KST, we recommend using an adjusting instrument. This is the arthrostem. I like it very much. There's, like I said, you can use anything, even your fingers, but it makes it so much easier. It's easier on the doctor too. So many doctors are in pain from years of manual adjusting. And I know doctors that had to retire from years of manual work. So instruments make life a lot easier. Also, I like to say this at seminars, probably upset some people, but it's true. For every one patient that likes a good crack, 20 are staying away. You have to know how to be real specific without twisting and yanking and turning and destroying your body as well as scaring them. So anyway, subluxations are not just standing and sitting. Those are only two postures. It could be bending over, bending forward, bending back, crossing the legs, foot on a chair, going upstairs. In fact, what I like, some patients are in horrible pain, their knees, their legs, their ankles, when they go up or downstairs. So what I have is a little stool with a few steps in it. You know, those little, you open them up and they have steps. I forget what they call them. Somebody remind me. But you go up and down the steps. Perfect. As they're doing that, I check and adjust what needs to be corrected, or I check and correct. So that's just a really good way to do it. We've had doctors who have had patients sit on motorcycles when they get adjusted because they were in horrible pain when they were on their motorcycle. So I've had doctors, and I've done it before, you have people hold hands and look at each other and they subluxate. Lots of different ways of creating stress in families, not just physical, but in relationships. I've had people hold a football and just bring it back, and you check them as they go through every motion. You find the exact spot where they subluxate, and you correct that, you improve their game. And you know, some baseball players, a pitcher, it could be the difference between an 80-mile-per-hour fastball and an 85-mile-per-hour fastball, or whatever. But as they go through the motion, you check. You find the exact spot where they're out, and you correct it. So these are some of the ideas of using the posture of subluxation. I hope I've been helpful. We're going to be going into this in more, in more detail at later talks like this. Wednesday at 1, maybe not like happened yesterday. So today's Thursday at 1, but. I'm also doing some KST seminars. I'm going to be in Sweden, in Stockholm, in May. Please come. Should be a lot of fun. I guess we'll have meatballs there. And we'll have, I'm going to be in Taiwan in April. I'm going to be in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. Driving distance from Georgia and North Carolina, and South Carolina, Tennessee, and Florida. Please come. That'll be in a few weeks. If you go to korenspecifictechnique.com, you'll see our schedule there, korenspecifictechnique.com. And please write to me. I notice there's a bunch of people on. That's great. And somebody wrote, clean the lens of the camera. Yeah, it is foggy, isn't it? What can I tell you? I don't know. I don't know if it's the lens. Maybe I'm a little foggy. It might be the lighting. Yeah, it doesn't look right. Thanks for telling me. I'll check on it later on. I think you can get an idea that I'm here. That's the important thing. Anyway, please write to me. The posture of subluxation, physical, mental, emotional, as people move, as they think, as they move their eyes, as they read, as they write, you will get the most incredible clear outs. You'll get the most powerful responses. And this is one of the reasons why KST is so powerful and valuable. And if you're not using it, please do so. And if you are using it, start. I hope I reminded you of a few things, and come to a seminar as soon as you can. It'll be a lot of fun, and you get work done, get the best adjustments, best corrections of your life, as we like to say, and it's true. So I hope to see you again soon. Next week will be Wednesday at 1, unless I think of something interesting, and I might just get on maybe some other topic that I'd like to talk about. We'll see. Thank you again for watching.